Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about what I had to do for the fuel system in the swap. In the E38 there are not two, but there's one fuel tank. It looks like two from underneath, but it actually is one, and there is only one fuel pump. I think I'd read on some online forums that there were two fuel pumps, but if you actually pull up the diagram, you can see it's just one and using some kind of suction system to get the fuel from the other side. They just did this because the drive shaft goes right through the middle of the car, and there's the only way you can sneak a tank in there. So nothing too special there. For the fuel pump wiring, the biggest challenge you're going to have is that the BMW DME supplies ground to the relay to turn on the fuel pump, whereas the GM ECU provides 12 volts positive to the relay to turn it on. So you're going to have to switch the wires around or reverse the polarity. That relay's in the trunk. It's on the right side. If you just pull back the carpet on the side, you'll see there's a whole bunch of fuses back there and relays, and it's the one in the picture there. So what you'll have to do, there are two kind of cuttings of the wires you're going to have to do. The first one takes place in the trunk at the fuel pump relay. You have a red, white, yellow wire going to the relay. That wire comes from the fuse, and that would always supply voltage to it, which we don't want to do anymore. So you're going to cut that wire and go ahead and just hook it to a nearby ground. I saw like a strut back in the trunk there, right next to the relays, and I just sanded it down in a little spot and then ran a little ground wire right to that, and that was it, and marked it so anybody in the future knew what I did there. And in the engine bay, you have a black with purple wire that's on the X6004 connector, and that's on pin 10 of that connector. Just take that wire out of the BMW connector and then wire it right up to the pin 9 of your green connector on your GM ECU, which should be a dark green with white wire. And when you do that, you have now completed all the wiring you need for turning on the fuel pump from your computer. As for the fuel lines, this was a little bit different. Took some time to realize it, but both of the lines on the BMW are 8 mil, which translates into 5/16. Well, GM only uses 5/16 for return lines. They don't use that for supply. They actually go to a larger 3/8 line for that. I'm just running a stock LQ4. I don't really have any high power demands at the moment. I'm not noticing any lags or drop in fuel pressure or anything like that. So for my purposes, the 5/16 supply line works, and that's fine. But if I ever do upgrade to some serious power, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 horsepower or something crazy like that, that would probably be an issue. Something to think about. Also, BMW lines, the inboard is your supply line. That's where the pressure comes out, and the outboard line is the return line. If you want to verify this, a quick and easy way is just simply disconnect both those lines, have somebody bump the key or energize the fuel pump relay for a second. You'll see the fuel coming out. That'll prove it. Fuel pressure. This was one that took me a minute to figure out. So your LSX is going to want about 58 psi per the book. The E38 runs down around 50. That's a little anemic. I mean, it would probably work if you just kept the stock fuel pressure regulator in place, but it would be a problem if you ever upgraded. I originally did put in the filter regulator combo, and I was wondering why my idle was kind of not so great. I was getting some lag in some areas, and finally I checked, and I connected to my fuel pressure rail and ran a test and found 72 psi when it was running. So I ended up paying a bit more and got me a Holley fuel pressure regulator. Ever since then, it's been a lot less thirsty when driving it around, so it's doing a lot better. For the fuel rail, your BMW fuel line, it comes out on the passenger side next to the strut tower. That is not going to work with the stock GM fuel rail unless you want to snake it all the way around the engine bay, which I think looks ugly, because most of those are expecting the line to come up on the driver's side, which is a little odd because the fuel pump in the BMW is on the driver's side. They actually routed it back across the car and then came back, and I guess they were just trying to meet up with that engine and, you know, made the car work with the engine. Anyway, I used the part number you're seeing there for that. I used that fuel rail. It is it works fine. I am running the stock injectors for the LQ4. They're I think the 28 pounders. So I think they're shorter than what the LS2 or the LS3 came with. So I had to bend the tabs that hold the rail down. So it brought the rail down to seat against the injectors comfortably. Now, of course, this is the fuel system you're working with. You're making a modification, so test, test, test. Make sure you look at the line. Make sure you fire it up, get it running, and check every single injector to see if there's any kind of leak there. I will point out that you know, it's a really good idea. Kind of a rule of thumb is that if you have the rail pushed down all the way, you should still be able to turn the injector, wiggle it slightly left to the right. It's going to have some resistance, but there should be some kind of movement. If you can't move that injector at all, chances are you've pushed the fuel rail down too far and might want to just kind of pry it back up a little bit to help those seals out. I'm going to end up probably ditching the rail anyhow because I'm going to go to a nicer one when I upgrade my intake and all that stuff sometime in the future. So that's it for the fuel system.